I am your host, Julie Palumbo, and this week we have a great guest, Shilpi Mahajan, who is going to teach us about mindfulness in children. And she is the founder of Fablefy, which actually brings out resources for school-age children in mindfulness and talks about the importance of it as well as SEL within the community. So, Shilpi, welcome to DisruptHealth. It is a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come here and talk to you and your audience about the importance of mindfulness in children.
Yeah, so let's kick it off with you telling us more about Fablefy and your own experience with it and how it all came about.
Oh, yeah, sure. So let's go into the background story for Fablefy. So I have been practicing meditation for the last 6 years, and it all started my own personal experience with myself. Like I had a deep personal loss, and I got into meditation to just sort of heal myself. And as I got more into mindfulness, I started practicing with my own children. My daughter is now 12 and my son is 6. So I kind of started with them practically when my son was a year old and my daughter was 7 or 8. And the idea was to help, it started with my idea to help my daughter alleviate her stress in school and all the stress that came with having a new sibling. And also at that time, she sort of developed some facial tics because of which she was having some bullying in school. So it was all a process of giving her that ability to regulate her own self and her own emotions about the whole experience. I then started working in different preschools, communities, libraries, the juvenile detention center, and starting teaching mindfulness to them. And then I thought to myself, I can't scale myself, so how do I make it more scalable? And that's when the concept of Fablefy came. We created 2 characters, Abel and Phi, and they are our mindful superheroes, and they go out and teach children about different ways in which they can become more aware of their breath, become more mindful, express more gratitude, manage stress. So that's what the story of Fablefy is.
That's awesome. So can you tell our viewers a little bit more about mindfulness and exactly what it is?
So, I mean, for adults, mindfulness is technically having a quality of self-awareness, non-judgment, focus and attention in every experience that you're having. And for children, mostly, when I speak to them, it's about being in this present moment. So, I mean, we talk about what being present really means. It's being in the classroom with your teachers and not thinking about your recess break. It's about being able to help somebody, understand, express empathy towards a classmate who may be having a hard time. So yes, so that's what mindfulness is.
Wow, that's so great that, you bring up a really good point. When I initially thought of mindfulness and, like you said, self-awareness, I immediately thought about bullying, and that is such a huge issue this day and age, not only at school, but now online as well. But I didn't even think about, how it not only helps the child, but it helps the teacher, because you're helping the student be present in its class rather than having all of these thoughts wandering, like you said, to recess or, maybe there's sports after school or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, the idea is that the teachers these days, they are so worked up because of classroom management and because of academic performance that they are not able themselves to bring in the quality of interaction in the classroom. So what we are saying is that when we bring mindfulness to the classroom, it's just not for the students, but also for the teachers. So they all are together in this and making it a more productive class.
That's wonderful. And so what results have you seen in showing and teaching mindfulness to students? How has it benefited these children?
So I don't really have any evidence-based programs yet, so I won't be able to give evidence on my own programs, but there is ample of evidence available through other programs like Mind Up and Casel's SEL program, where they have shown a significant improvement in academic performance once mindfulness and yoga was introduced into the class. I can give, top of my mind, I don't have the stats, but I can give an example of one school in Baltimore. Once they introduced yoga and mindfulness, the detention went to 0. And this was an at-risk neighborhood.
Wow, that's so amazing. So clearly it's very important for students to start practicing mindfulness at a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, if you look at like the stats out there right now, I'm just going to look up, just read through. 1 in 5 children ages 13 to 18 will have a mental disorder. 11% of the youth of teens today have a mood disorder. 10% have a behavior or a conduct disorder. 8% of teens have an anxiety disorder, and suicide is again a third leading cause of deaths among teens. And there's clearly a generation that is on a brink of a mental health disaster. And nobody is, I mean, people are talking about it, but it's not like an emergency out there. And I think if we introduce things like mindfulness, which help them self-regulate themselves, manage their stress, manage their anxiety, because everything is so closely related to the breath, I think we can really help our teens today.
Absolutely. And how is it complementary to the SEL skills that you talk about?
So if you look at mindfulness, it's a sort of an inside-out approach, and SEL is like an outside-in approach. Right. And they pretty much work on similar skills, but just the way they attack it, or, you know, I shouldn't use the word attack, but the way they handle it is different. So while mindfulness will tell you to focus on your breath to manage stress, SEL curriculum will probably ask you to name it, like we'll probably use something like name it to tame it, like you name the emotion that you're feeling. So if you can start with a name it to tame it, like, you know, say, okay, at this point of time, I'm feeling disappointed. And then you teach the child how to manage the breath to handle that disappointment and delay a reaction, like be non-reactive. You can actually complete the whole education and emotional and social learning. Yeah, so that's how I look at it.
And what does SEL stand for?
Social and emotional learning.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So it is more like a holistic approach in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's more holistic. You talk to kids about empathy. There is a growing reduction in empathy in children. I mean, the way I look at it is that organic structures of building empathy or social and emotional learning are breaking down. I mean, we used to pick those skills for communities, from our parents, grandparents, but those structures are sort of like breaking down now. So the organic introduction of SEL is not happening in children's lives. So it's up to the education system now to take that on.
And at what age do you start working with these children through?
Sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt you, but we started as early as 3 years old. Wow. And when we just talk about breath, or we'll introduce them to a mood meter, which is more SEL related, they'll just, you know, put their hands in front, they'll do pizza breaths, or they can do candle breaths, or just simple stretching movement, sitting still like a frog. So there are a lot of things that you can do to teach kids about mindfulness.
That is wonderful. And I know how much mindfulness has helped me, and I only started really practicing it and practicing yoga and meditation over the past 5 years. So I can imagine starting it so young, how much more impactful that would have been through, especially those awful middle school and junior high years, and always when we were so stressed out then in high school and with sports, you know, starting out so young just gives you all the tools so that when you actually are facing really big stressors emotionally and physically in life, you're already prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with that. Like elementary school is the perfect time to introduce it.
Mhm.
And by the time you would have learned the skills which you can actually implement in middle school and high school. But I would say that it needs to be revisited at pretty much every stage um, of the school years. Like even if it's introduced in elementary, you have to go back to the basics in middle and high. Yes.
Do you kind of change your format or the curriculum depending on the age of the child?
Yes, absolutely. With the preschoolers and the elementary school kids, it's more play-based learning. But with your middle schoolers and high schoolers, one, it's very hard to get them to do meditation because it's not easy for them to come. It's not very easy for them to just sit still because there's so much going on in their lives.
Yes.
And that's why you want it to be teacher-driven. But the format clearly becomes more serious, more controlling stress and anxiety based, rather than just having a good playful time.
That's wonderful. And I guess that's so much more useful and applicable to where they are at that stage at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So in wrapping up, Shilpi, what is something that parents or educators can do right now that can begin integrating mindfulness both in their lives and in their children's lives?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is something that I use with both my children, I mean, with my whole family every single day. So just before bedtime, we all sit together in bed and we just take 5 deep breaths. I mean, you can make it 5, 10, depending on how much your kids are ready to do. So it connects us one as a family. Because we're doing it all together. And then we spend some time talking about our day, like what was good about the day. What emotions are you feeling right now after the 5 deep breaths? Or what was not too good about your day? And we share it with each other. So not only is the practice of mindfulness bringing you in the present moment, but it's bringing you together as a community.
Yeah.
For educators, I would strongly advise them to spend just 2 minutes of stillness before starting a class. And research now shows that even 2 minutes of meditation can have a significant impact on the brain. And if we can just do that, just 2 minutes, we can probably bring the class back into the class, your students back into the class, and who knows, just have an increased academic performance.
That's great. And I love your point about sharing how your day went, both good and bad, with your family, because another thing that is kind of added to the complexity of our lives today is technology. And just get so zoned in on our phones and our laptops and iPads that you really do lose that personal connection. So by creating that within your home is really special.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're creating those conversation zones, like, I mean, as Disrupt TV says, sparking the conversation. And it's between all of us, whether we are at home or in classrooms. And you're right. I mean, those 10 minutes are no telephone zones. Like, my husband is not going to be on the phone at that time. I'm not going to be on the phone at that time. Kids are off the phone. So it's important to have that interpersonal connection. And that's where SEL skills are truly built, when you're connecting peer-to-peer, parent to student, not when you're connecting with the screen.
Right, exactly. I thank you so much for being here, Shilpi. This is so much valuable information, and I hope that you as a viewer enjoy this as well, because this is something that is so critical during this time, both at home and outside of the home, for our children and for the future generation. So thank you so much, Shilpi, and thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Disrupt Health. I'm your host, Julie Palumbo, and I will see you next week.